Hi there, and welcome to the second ever episode of Mining the Comments, in which we'll look at a comment that I think has a quite common theme about actually feeling some sadness after the struggle with insomnia, and that we can learn so much from. And we're going to jump in there in a second. First, I just want to say that last Friday, I was planning to announce here that I was going to be out of town and not creating content so much for this week. This will be the only one this week, but it got so busy last Friday, I never got around to it. So anyway, sorry about sharing this after the fact, but that was why. And before we jump into the comment, I just have one announcement, and it's sort of a question here. If you have really left the struggle with insomnia following our teachings our way, and you would like to help others as a sleep coach, well, this is an invitation to apply. Every 4 times a year, we start a new batch of sleep coaching students, and we have 2 slots, for every batch. One is taken for this year, but we have 1 slot available. So if you would like to apply, then head over to sleepcoachschool.com and then scroll down, and you can find a place where it talks about, like, if you want to become a sleep coach, you can follow the prompt there, and it'll take you to a spot where you can apply. All right, so with that said, let's just jump in and look at this comment that came in 19 hours ago from Cola Tian. Cola says, "Dear Daniel, just want to tell you that it seems like I recovered from insomnia because now I'm not afraid of sleep anymore." And you can see I highlighted this because this will come back later on. "Now I totally accept that sleep is our natural ability and we can't control it. With these thoughts, sleep just came back to me. Thank you so much. My recovery road literally began with watching the interview of you and Alina. You guys really saved my life. Love you guys. Love you back. So glad to hear this, and so glad you found the channel." And that is one of the most powerful interviews, really, with Alina. "I would like to ask you another question, which I'm not sure is about insomnia or not. I just found something change after recovery. How? Question mark. Now, when it gets dark at night, I started to have sort of sad emotions. Those sad emotions had nothing to do with sleep, since I already can sleep now. To be honest, I even don't think about sleep anymore. Apart from those sad emotions, a lot of negative thoughts also tend to come in my mind, especially at night, while in the day, I just feel totally normal, even chilled. So confusing. It looks like I have had an emotion clock in my body, which I cannot control. No matter what a wonderful day I have, I would be dragged into that sad mood at night. Those sad emotions can sometimes make me feel anxious, since I have no idea where those sad emotions come from, since I'm totally okay with sleep. I felt so confused, since now I had no problem with my sleep anymore. I really wonder, why can those sad emotions be lingering so long after I recovered? Is this something like a trauma? How was it for other people who recovered from insomnia? Hope to get some insights from you. Thank you so much. Anytime. So glad you're here." And before we look at what I wrote down, I just want to say real briefly, like, how was it for other people who recovered from insomnia? Alina herself actually often talks about how there was an element of sadness when the struggle ended for her. And I've made a specific episode where I think I called the thumbnail something like "What it feels like when the struggle ends." This, or surprising way it feels like the struggle ends. So if anybody peruses the content, you'll find content on this that is kind of similar to what we'll talk about today. But yes, Alina felt that way. Is it something like a trauma? Yeah, I do think a lot of what we talk about here on this channel is similar to trauma, in a sense that we can have a strong emotional experience, and the more we don't want to experience that again, the more we have sort of a memory that we don't want to come back. It's similar to something traumatic, where we experienced something that was very upsetting in our lives, and it can be traumatic if we try really hard to not have that happen again. And so that element is definitely here. Now, anyways, I want to focus here, reading the comment here, I'll focus on the 2 reasons for insomnia, sadness when insomnia ends. Maybe more, but 2 common reasons I see there, and how to meet this situation. And the first reason there's often some sadness when the struggle ends, is actually around, actually, I think comes from, or can be explained with this topic or this concept that is called arrival fallacy. And if you never heard that again, I think to me it was a real eye opener. Hearing it described so nicely as just arrival fallacy. But I think you'll recognize that basic arrival fallacy is when we think something like, all I need to be like happy for the rest of my life is this one little thing that's in my way. Once I get this one thing, everything will be just bliss. We all have that. Actually, I'm realizing it is super, super common, right? This arrival fallacy in, big or small, it's something that comes up in our brain very, very often. And of course, it is a fallacy. It is just kind of a trick that the brain has to make us do stuff. It's like, oh, Daniel, if you once you've recorded this episode and you've uploaded it, then it's the weekend. Then it'll be super nice. And you'll just have everything everything will just be beautiful once you're done with this one little thing. The brain creates this image because it wants us to do stuff. And when it highlights, when it really amplifies how it's just one little thing you need to do to have this great, great reward, then of course it makes us really want to do that. But it is, of course, a fallacy, because I know once I've uploaded this and I feel good for a second, oh, good, I accomplished something. And the brain will just be like, oh, but you also need this. You also need this other thing, and it can keep us in this loop. So translating this to insomnia, the realization that even when the struggle with insomnia is over, there's no struggle anymore, life isn't dramatically different. That can make us feel sad. It can be this arrival fallacy playing out again. We would imagine once I sleep well, my life will be just beautiful. I will never be irritated, frustrated. I will just enjoy everything. Seeing that isn't true, that we're still ourselves, that can make us feel a bit sad and disappointed. And why does this happen? Was described in the comment here, particularly at night. Well, maybe that's when we're reminded of the struggle. We're reminded of the struggle. We're reminded that there's no struggle anymore. And we're reminded that, we're still not, there's no dramatic change. And that the arrival fallacy can play out a little bit more towards the night, in that when we think of it that way. That was the first thing I thought about. And the second reason I thought of this, of that can explain the sadness, is related to what I call the ultimate truth, which, by the way, was also coined by Alina. Alina herself really explained this ultimate truth so well. And I believe that first video when she was a guest. And her ultimate truth that she realized, through her insomnia struggle, was that there's nothing we can do to control sleep or emotions. Basically, what she said was more like, there's nothing I can do to sleep better. There's nothing I can do to sleep more. Or there's nothing I can do to guarantee that I'll sleep. And that she coined this as the ultimate truth. And I think this applies to beyond sleep. There's nothing we can do to control our emotions either. That to me is ultimately true. It's actually just a version of the first principle of Natto, which is the principle of effortlessness. Now, this realization can make us feel sad, and because it comes after a struggle, where the struggle, the intent, the goal of the struggle was basically to get some control, get something tangible to do, so that we don't struggle with insomnia, so that we don't feel anxious, so etc. And when we realize there's actually nothing there's nothing we can do that can make us feel sad, because we have the survival mind in the brain. Everything it wants is to control as much as it can to make sure we survive. And then when the brain realizes that there is no such thing, as control, that can appear disappointing. It can be oh my, there's nothing I can do. That can, that disappointment can translate into us feeling sad. So those two reasons why I think this is actually very common. And just randomly, I remember Sean Castle, who was a guest here, he talks about this as the letdown effect. They call it in his teachings, he calls this a letdown effect. So definitely other people have picked up on this also. Now, how do we meet this? How do we meet this sadness that can come as the struggle has with insomnia has faded? Well, we can see that emotions such as sadness are signals and thoughts are messages. And you probably heard me talk about this before, but I'm starting to make this distinction here between emotions as signals and thoughts as messages. Messages are things that are pretty clear to us. We can see the message as a thought. The thought is what if I don't sleep tonight? That is a thought. We can see like word for word. It's a message. Okay, we can read all the words. Emotions are signalers. They're like a fire alarm going like zzz, like it's there are no words. It's not a clear cut message, but it's a signal. It's a signal that we can experience. And so basically when we attempt not to hear that, there's a typo here, and I'm going to correct it right away. When we attempt not to feel a signal, it should say here. When we attempt not to feel a signal, it is amplified. We may not see the words, we may not see the message, we don't understand exactly where the signal has come from, but there's clearly an attempt to communicate with us with the signal. And when it comes to sadness, what the brain is basically trying to communicate with us is that there's nothing to do. The best survival strategy at this point is non-action. It's kind of like playing dead. Sadness leads to non-action, and playing dead. Sadness also can lead to us getting empathy from other people, which can be another important survival strategy. But that's where that signal of sadness comes from. And just as other signals, when we try not to feel them, we're like, no, I don't want to feel this way, I shouldn't feel this way, we want to block a signal, then to the brain it's like, oh no, this is important, this is a safety thing. It is amplified. When we attempt not to feel, I made a typo again, I'm realizing. When we attempt not to feel a signal, it should say here, when we attempt not to feel a signal, it is amplified. And when we attempt to not hear a message, it is delivered over and over again. Same principle that when somebody gives us a message, like delivers a message to us, and we're like, no, I don't want to hear this. Then the messenger is like, no, but this is an important message. We have to send it to you over and over again. So thoughts are sent over and over again when we don't want to hear them, and emotions are amplified when we don't want to feel them. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, with that in mind, we can see that the willingness to feel something leads to that feeling fading away. So the willingness to feel scared really leads to the fading out of insomnia. And here we go to that highlighted section from the comment where it said, I recovered from insomnia because now I'm not very afraid of sleep anymore. And what is helpful to where it's helpful to go a little deeper here is like, what are we really afraid of when we have insomnia? Are we afraid to sleep? I believe there's truth there. When we think we are in danger for any reason, sleep is not something that quote unquote should happen. So we are sort of afraid to sleep. So for example, if I was sleepy, but then I realized that I left the oven on, classic example, then I'm now afraid to sleep because it's not safe to sleep. But what I'm truly afraid of is really the oven being on. That's the real danger. So insomnia, I think we can understand as we're afraid actually of not sleeping. We're afraid of being awake. That has become a threat for us. We think of that as a danger, just like the oven is on. So therefore, we're also we're afraid to sleep because we're afraid of something dangerous can happen, which is being awake. So, both saying that I'm afraid to sleep and being afraid of not sleeping is actually true when it comes to insomnia, but it goes even deeper than that. And it is the following, that when, what really leads to struggle ending is not necessarily when we're not afraid of sleeping or not afraid of not sleeping, but when we're no longer afraid of feeling scared. What derives insomnia really is fear. Being awake at night is just a surface manifestation of the emotion we call fear. So when someone like, I have to check the name again, someone like Cola Tian no longer struggles with insomnia, it is actually because they're not afraid of being afraid anymore. There's been this willingness to experience fear thanks to education, thanks to courage, thanks to kindness, and then the struggle is over. So again, the willingness to feel scared really is what leads to the fading of insomnia. And the willingness to feel sad will lead to the fading of this recurring sadness that happens at night. And I'm hopeful that we'll soon see a comment from Cola Tian that says, I recovered from sadness because I'm not very afraid of feeling sad anymore. I hope that made a lot of sense to you, Cola Tian, and anyone else that is tuning in here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And if you're finding that, like for Cola Tian, the struggle is ending, and you're living the life you want, and you're in a nice place, that is wonderful. Please let us know. On the flip side, if you're struggling, you find it hard to contextualize the teaching here, you're feeling maybe alone and isolated, you're not feeling like the person you would like to feel like, then please head over to our website. Check out our coaching options. If you find a program that you think would suit you well, then we look forward to seeing you on the inside. With that said, hope you have a wonderful weekend, and look forward to having you back next week. Bye for now.